For a number of years now, the Nash Ambassador 6 has been selling in about the same price class as the Buick 40, Chrysler 6, DeSoto 6, and Packard 6. The Ambassador 6 has come to be recognized as a truly fine car, as a superior value when compared with any and all of such automobiles as the Buick, Chrysler, DeSoto, and Packard. But today, it will be news to many a car buyer to learn that the 1941 Nash Ambassador 6, the finest of the sixes, is now selling for just about the same price as the Dodge Deluxe, Pontiac Deluxe 6 and 8, and Oldsmobile Special 6 and 8, to name the three largest selling competitive makes in the lower medium price field. Therefore, our comparisons will deal primarily with these three cars. But we'll also take a look at the Hudson Super 6, Mercury 8, and Studebaker Commander, which sell at comparable prices. But what happened to the Ambassador 6 this year, now that it's selling for less? Was it whittled down in wheelbase, or horsepower, or roominess, or quality? Take a look at last year's model and at the 1941 model. Same wheelbase this year, same horsepower, much more roominess, and as for quality, well, we're going to go over the 1941 model with a magnifying glass and prove that it offers every one of the important or exclusive quality features that won it a rightful place in a higher price class, and which make it the standout buy of 41 in its present company. Now, perhaps you'll say, oh, that sounds good, but how can Nash give so much for the money when everybody else has increased prices? Well, we spent $7 million retooling our plants. That brings important savings to us and to the buyer. However, the principal reason for the low Nash prices was the Nash determination to get a real volume of sales, and do it this year. Now, there's nothing mysterious about this job of building volume in a hurry. It's been done before in the automotive industry. It takes a solid, well-financed company to do it, and the debt-free $50 million Nash Kelvinator Corporation is one of the largest in the industry. It takes a fine automobile, and we'll prove the 1941 Nash Ambassador 6 is just that. Finally, and most important, we have priced this car for more volume, offering value so great that it smashes right through people's habit of buying some other automobile. And that's exactly what's been happening. The sales figures show it. However, the greater Nash value is not to be read only in price tags, for prices in this class are pretty well leveled off into three groups. That is, most makers offer a low-cost model, a deluxe model, and a custom model. There's a lowest cost group which includes the Dodge Deluxe, the Pontiac Deluxe 6, the Hudson Super 6, the Oldsmobile Special 6, and the Nash Ambassador 6 Special Slipstream. Then in the deluxe group, we find the Dodge Custom, the Deluxe Oldsmobile Special 6, the Studebaker Commander, the Pontiac Streamliner 6, the Mercury, and the Hudson Commodore 6. Finally, the custom models line up like this: Dodge Custom Town Sedan, Oldsmobile Dynamic 6, Pontiac Super Streamliner 6, Studebaker Commander Land Cruiser, and Oldsmobile Dynamic Cruiser Deluxe 6. And in each one of the preceding three groups, there is usually only a few dollars price difference either way between any one of the Nash Ambassador 6s and comparable models of other makes. Frankly, we don't think there's enough difference to decide an investment of $1,000 or so, even when the difference is in our favor. But if the difference is not in the price tag, where is it? We say that the difference between our car and the others lies in the power, economy, and long life, the comfort and the luxury, the exclusive fine car features which one expects to find and does find in a big car which is always sold against higher price cars until this year. An improved car which by every right should sell for more this year. To begin with, let's see what power is put at your disposal by the Nash Ambassador 6 and by the others in its price class.
The 105 horsepower Nash Ambassador is the most powerful car in this group of sixes. The Oldsmobile 6 comes next with 100 horsepower, while Dodge and Pontiac bring up the rear with 91 and 90 horsepower. And just to keep the record clear, the Hudson Super 6 is rated at 102 horsepower and the Studebaker Commander at 95. The Mercury is an 8, but its 95 horsepower rating puts it at the midpoint of the list of sixes. However, before you pick the winner of a horse race, you'd want to know how much weight he had to carry. In the same way, axle ratios and torque characteristics being equal, the performance of a car will be nimble or sluggish according to the amount of weight each horsepower has to lug around. And here again, the Nash Ambassador 6 leads the cars listed. It has only 31 4/10 pounds of car weight to be moved by each horsepower. Notice that the Dodge Deluxe and the Pontiac 6 Deluxe burden their engines with 10 and 20% excess weight for every horsepower. Strangely enough, if you pay $25 extra for an 8-cylinder Pontiac engine, you'll still get less horsepower than the owner of a Nash Ambassador 6, and there'll still be 7% excess weight for each horsepower to move. You'll do slightly better if you pay the $35 extra cost of an Oldsmobile 8-cylinder engine. You'll get 110 horsepower, 5 more than Nash offers, but only 0.8 of a pound less weight per horsepower. And of course, everybody knows it costs more to operate an 8 than a 6. In short, the performance facts only emphasize the surging power and the flashing action of the Nash Ambassador 6, which gives you more power than 7 out of the 8 engines just discussed. When a manufacturer provides outstanding power, though, he should provide outstanding stopping ability, and in Nash we have done this. The Ambassador 6 provides 176 square inches of brake lining area, more than any other car in its price class, more than Olds, Mercury, Dodge, Studebaker, Pontiac, or Hudson. Or, considered another way, when the ratio of car weight to brake lining is considered, Nash advantages are equally outstanding. For every 100 pounds of car weight, Nash provides 5 3/10 square inches of brake lining area, which is from 5 to 22% more than the other cars in this group. These figures mean that the Nash brakes will retain their stopping power longer without relining.
In comparing the exterior and interior measurements of our car with the fastest-selling other cars, we're going to use the figures released by each manufacturer for his own product. That ought to give everybody a square deal. As for wheelbase, the Dodge, the Pontiac Deluxe, and the Oldsmobile Special are from 1.5 to 2 inches shorter than the Ambassador 6, while the Mercury is 3 inches shorter. Then when we measure overall length, we find that Nash is somewhat longer than the Mercury and about the same length as the Pontiac Deluxe. Dodge Deluxe and the Oldsmobile Special have longer overall measurements. And frankly, we don't feel very bad about that. You see, it's no trick at all to increase overall length just by making the bumpers V-shaped or sticking them farther out in front. But length obtained that way does not mean more usable room to the people within the car. For example, the Oldsmobile Special shows almost 4 inches less total leg room than Nash in front and rear compartments. Yet it has 2 1/4 inches more overall length. Then in front seating width, the Nash is about the same as the Oldsmobile Special and the Pontiac Deluxe. But Mercury and Dodge are noticeably narrower, especially Dodge, with 2 5/8 inches less seating width. In rear seating width, the differences are more pronounced. Oldsmobile has 1 3/4 less room than Nash, and Pontiac 1 inch less. Dodge beats Nash by 1 inch, which may be some compensation for that definitely narrower front seat. Mercury is the same. But to summarize all this arithmetic, the measurements assure you of an automobile with the lounge-like roominess you'd expect in a higher-priced car, and which you get in the Nash Ambassador 6.
Now, we've discussed 3 points so far: price, power, and size. Each time you may have noticed that we passed by the Pontiac Streamliner and the Oldsmobile Dynamic in our general comparison. Therefore, let's take time out to consider those 2 models right now. First of all, they're smart, racy-looking automobiles. However, those racy looks are expensive. Pontiac charges $59 more for the Streamliner model than for its Deluxe model with similar equipment. Oldsmobile has a price increase of $65 for their Dynamic 6. As for the performance of these cars, when the 6-cylinder Pontiac engine gets the job of hauling the heavy Streamliner body, its load figures out to 39 pounds of car for every horsepower, the heaviest in the entire price class. Even with the more expensive 8-cylinder engine, the Pontiac Streamliner still has 11% more weight to be moved by each horsepower than the more nimble Ambassador 6. In the Oldsmobile Dynamic, the 6-cylinder engine must pull 8% more weight per horsepower than the Nash Ambassador 6 engine. And even if the 8-cylinder engine is used, the performance on the basis of weight per horsepower should still be slightly inferior to that of the Nash Ambassador 6. It's true that the Oldsmobile Dynamic has a wheelbase 4 inches longer than that of the Nash, and about 9 inches more overall length. However, the extra length does not mean more usable interior room than we provide, since that extra long Dynamic model actually winds up with a trifle less combined legroom front and rear than the Nash Ambassador 6. And in much the same way, the Pontiac Streamliner, 5 1/4 inches longer than Nash, provides only an inch more total legroom. Most of the extra length must go to provide that down swoop effect at the rear. And that, we think, winds up a reasonably fair appraisal of the Streamliner and Dynamic bodies. You may like their looks, but on the other side of the ledger, there's extra cost. There's also extra weight to be hauled by the same engines used in lighter models, which means more gas and oil and possibly more tire wear. And as we've seen, the added length is really for appearance, not an important comfort feature.
Now, when we compare the power plants of the Nash Ambassador 6 and the other cars in its price class, we find certain major exclusive advantages. The first exclusive is Aeropower. It's the Nash Aeropower engine, called that because it combines valve and head efficiency and twin ignition power. Every speed record in the air, as well as on land and in the water, is held by valve and head engines. The same type of dependable engine you'll have in your Ambassador 6. And the same advantages which enable valve and head power to break records in the air, on land, and on water will mean more power from every drop of gasoline you put into your new Nash. Here's why. There is a true downdraft action in a valve and head engine, since gasoline vapor enters the cylinder from a valve port directly above the piston. In contrast, fuel entering an L-head engine follows a winding passageway, even traveling upward at times. Other things being equal, fuel will not flow as evenly, and the cylinder will not fill as quickly and completely. Then when fuel burns in a valve and head engine, the energy thus created is concentrated right over the piston head, while in the L-head engine, part of the fuel burns in a pocket off to one side of the piston, and some of its energy is wasted there. These are technical points, but they are important advantages. And the Nash Ambassador 6, the only car in its price class with a valve and head engine, is the only one which offers them. Now let's look at twin ignition, the second ingredient of Aeropower. Every licensed transport plane in America uses it, but Nash alone offers it to the American motorist. Here's why it's so good and so dependable.
Other engines start the fuel mixture burning by a spark from one spark plug located off to one side of the cylinder. The combustion then spreads its way across the chamber. But the Nash Aeropower engine has 2 spark plugs. They start the fuel burning at each end of the combustion chamber simultaneously. Does this mean that we burn the fuel more quickly and completely, and therefore get more power out of it? Well, if you had a basket of leaves to be burned, you might start it burning at one place only. But if you wanted to burn it as quickly and completely as possible, you'd light it at 2 or more places, wouldn't you? That's so obvious that we have only one more point to make. Nash and the superlatively fine Rolls-Royce are the only automotive engines in the world which light the fuel mixture at 2 points and thereby get more power out of each ounce of gasoline.
That, briefly, is the story of Aeropower. Valve and head design plus twin ignition, a gasoline-saving combination you cannot buy on any other American car at any price. A standout value which alone would make the Nash Ambassador 6 the standout buy of 41.